Hello and welcome to another episode about Heaton Lodge Junction. My name's Simon George. Now, in this video, it's a special scenic episode, in fact. And the reason for that is because I've been asked so many times if there's a project that people can do that have got an existing layout which adds realism and can be done in a couple of evenings. And I thought about it, and there is. It's something actually which I've already got on my layout, and I'm going to show you what it is in a minute. And how to do it, in fact, as I've just said, in a couple of evenings, and it's really good fun. The other thing is there something that can be done to improve road vehicles? Because I see so many cars and trucks on layouts which are just plonked there and which could be made with just a couple of small things, a couple of small steps to be made so much more realistic. So I'm going to show you how to do that too. So without further ado, let's get cracking. So the little project I've got for you all is to model a gas cylinder compound. This is obviously the one at Heaton Lodge Junction. Now these are really interesting because they existed for about 50 years all over the rail network, and they were there solely to feed the gas to the point motor heaters to clear them of ice and snow in the winter. But I rarely see them modelled on any layouts. I've got to be honest, I only modelled this one because it's at the real location. But as you can see, there's loads of detail you can incorporate into these, from people just having a chat over an oil drum. Obviously, the cylinders themselves are a point of interest, and you can even light them up with security lighting, those of you that like electrics, which is probably not many of you, because later on in their life, they did suffer a lot from thieves. So, yeah, this is the little cameo that I've done here. It's easy to do. It adds a lot of interest. So let's have a look at what ingredients we need. Okay, so let's talk about our ingredients. Now, the obvious two things we need are the gas cylinders, which are just down here. And these can be picked up off the internet if you just put in model gas cylinders in O gauge or double O gauge, whatever you're modeling. You'll pick these up from eBay, or I think Scale Model Scenery do them. There's quite a few different sources, so you can just order those online. The other obvious component we need is the security fencing. Now this I got from Buzz Models, but you can get it in double O and O gauge again online if you just put security fencing, double O gauge or whatever. These I've cheated a bit, and I've taken these off another part of the layout because the security fencing I ordered for this video hasn't arrived, so I've just had to improvise. So this I've already made up and I've painted, and I have painted actually in steel grey, as you can see. But it comes in a box. It's dead easy to make up and paint yourself, so not too much of a problem. The other style you can get is actually the original compound that I did on Heaton Lodge, which is that sort of security fencing. But there's so many different versions, it really doesn't matter which version of steel fencing you go for. We need the talcum powder just to give the concrete a bit of texture. Concrete effect paint, again, you can get this from B&Q or online. Super glue activator, I just use it to glue the security fencing onto the base. Bit of super glue, bit of weathering powder, and we've got two paints which comprise the red for the gas cylinders and the metallic paint for the security fencing. The other thing, last but not least, we need is the base, which this is just 3mm plywood that I got from, where did I get it from now? Hobbycraft. And I wouldn't use card, I would use definitely 2 or 3mm plywood for this, because you need something that's quite rigid. Got a bit of DAS clay there, and then obviously scalpel, ruler, usual tools we need. So let's crack on and start the building. Right, the next job is to make the base up. Now, given that you've probably already made up, or we'll pretend that you've made up the security fencing, which you can buy as a kit, as I've just said online, it's just a case of positioning the fencing over the base and just marking out where you need to cut the base, which is obviously just beyond the fence itself. So we'll just do that quickly. Now, I'm just going to draw a line down there. Again, these bases were all sorts of different sizes. It doesn't matter. You can't really make any mistakes. I'll use a steel rule to cut the plywood. What I wouldn't do is use a jigsaw to cut plywood, especially 2 or 3 millimeters thick, because it does tend to splinter. A sharp scalpel like this, as long as you mind your fingers, is much better, because all you need to do is score it about 3 times, like so. Break it off, and then I've just got a file, or I did have. Here we are, and I'm just going to file off. I can't believe I'm using Heaton Lodge as a workbench, but not to worry, the vac will soon clear it up. So we're just going to file the edges just to get a fairly smooth edge, like so, and we have one base. Right, the base I've just sprayed literally with this concrete paint. I'm just going to sprinkle on and be quite liberal with the, as I've just said, with the spraying, because we need it to be fairly glossy. This paint, it doesn't matter whether it's matte concrete paint or whether it's gloss. Gloss is preferable because it soaks up this talc a lot better. And what this talc will do is just give us the texture we need for the concrete. So let's just give this 5 minutes to dry, and after that we'll proceed on to the next step. Okay, so that's after a couple of hours, and you can see that the talcum powder, there's still a bit of it on there. So we'll just give that a brush off. Some of the paint has bubbled, as you can see just there, which again doesn't matter at all. In fact, it makes things more realistic. And all I'm going to do next is just to add a bit of this weathering powder, just to give some different shades. Again, oops, doesn't really matter how much, but again, it just makes the concrete base age, really, just the dark slate grey weathering powder. And what we're looking for, once again, is just different shades, because that is what it gives. Sorry, that is what gives it realism. So I think we're nearly done here. Next thing is we just need to attach the fence. So that, again, it's got the texture we need. It's got the different shades, and that will make a super concrete base. So let's go on to the next step. Now there's a few ways you can actually attach the security fencing to the concrete base. My preference would be to drill holes where the uprights are, obviously for them to slot into the fence posts. But I think on this occasion, just for the camera, I'm going to use some super glue, and I'm just going to add a dab to the end of each post, and then I'm just going to secure it onto the base. Just put it kind of roughly into position, but I'm just going to use the activator that I've talked about earlier, probably a little bit skew with, just to secure it down. If we just hold this for a minute, we should find we've got a fairly secure security fence. If your layout doesn't move, by the way, doesn't go anywhere, I'd probably just use this method, but I think if it's a mobile layout, portable, that hasn't taken there, so let's give it another little dab. There we go, a bit more. Yeah, I think if it was a portable layout, I'd probably just drill these fence posts, but for the purposes of this video, we'll just use the super glue, which is good enough for any permanent layout. So that is the main fencing done. Now, when you buy these fencing kits, you'll find that there's usually doors as well. as there is on my compound that I've done on Heaton Lodge. So these will obviously go across one of the ends, and they just need to be incorporated into the actual security compound. So next step. So moving on, one of my favourite parts, and it's just going to be the detailing, which is just simply adding the gas bottles, which again we'll just use super glue to fit them on. This one actually, I've put I don't know if you can see it on camera. This one's got a coat, which is a workman's coat, which is actually made by Model U. They do some really good stuff like figures with bags, and which are really, get my words out, realistic in O gauge. I think they do them in double O as well, but I'm not quite certain. And all we're going to do is just secure these Calagas cylinders into the compound. And this is the stage as well where if you want to add some lighting to it for a more modern compound, perhaps from the late 80s or 90s, you could do that. So you get the gist. Dustbin here as well. You can even add a figure inside as if he's repositioning the gas cylinders. I'm going to put a dustbin in the corner, just on that uneven paint. Bit of super glue activator again, and you can see how this is going to look. Okay, so if I was installing this compound that we've just built onto an uneven surface, what I'll probably do is just put a bit of DAS down here first, then put the compound on top of it like so. Some of you might find that your layouts are a bit, the surface that you're going to put them on is a lot more, what's the word, a lot flatter than this. But I've already done the scenery, as you can see underneath. And then all I'll do is just make up a little ramp, which again, it will probably be done with concrete. In any case, and then we could colour this and paint it a little bit later. And we could even add some static grass over the top. So we'll just cut here. I'll do this off camera and then we'll come back in a sec. Okay, so you can see how I've set this base into the DAS clay, because it will level everything out. It will hide the gaps in the concrete base, which is really important. And it's up to you what you want to cover this DAS clay with. I'd simply use, I'd probably static grass it, to be honest, and just spray a bit of varnish on here. In fact, just for the time being, let's just spray a bit of varnish on the clay, and just use a bit of our old friend, the Tremendous earth powder, which we use a lot in static grass. And I think what I'd do is then go over the top of this once it's dry with the static grass applicator. Again, don't matter if you spill it, it just blends it into the background. There we go. A bit more varnish to secure it. And then, yeah, I think again here I would just cover it with static grass. It just depends on where you're actually locating this gas bottle compound as to what you want to do. But that is basically it. We're just going to cut now to the one that I've finished before on Heaton Lodge, just to see how that looks in comparison. Right, so this is the one I did a few years ago. As you can see, it's got lots more gas bottles. It's also got some pallets. Again, you can buy these from Scale Model Scenery, all these little accessories. It's got the big gas bottle in the middle, which you can also get online. But you can see how I've tried to integrate it into the scenery itself. That one, actually, I've just put gravel or ballast at the side instead of that earth powder that I just sprinkled on. And it's always nice to have a few people just having a chat over an oil drum, a bit of the water which is just Puddles. I think it's Puddles by AK Interactive that I've just used. The grates in the ground. These are all things that you can add around this compound just to give it a little bit of interest. But it does make a great cameo, and lit up, if you want to do that, as I've said earlier, it's great fun as well, and it will just make an interesting addition to your layout. So I hope that's helped. Okay, so let's take a quick look at road vehicles. Now, I see road vehicles, cars, vans, whatever, plonked on layouts up and down the country, straight out the box. And there's so much that can be done to improve the look of these. In fact, there's two really small things that can be done to improve the look straight away, which I rarely see done. But I'm going to show you how to do that now because it's so simple. This is actually, as you've not already probably guessed, a 143 scale Sherpa van. Actually, this is the model that was in the Spy Who Loved Me, but you can get it on eBay and it makes a great conversion for British Rail permanent way vehicles or whatever. But anyway, the same stages that I'm going to show you apply to double O gauge, N gauge, O gauge, whatever. But there's just a couple of things that I want to show you just how to improve the appearance really, really quickly. So let's show you what we need first. And it's dead simple what we need, that is, which is just a file, some paint, which is acrylic rubber black in this case, which is Tamiya XF65, sorry, 85. But you can get rubber black or tire black by most of the manufacturers. And this is just some acrylic paint, some black paint, just mixed with water to make it the consistency of water. And we're just going to use that to tone the vehicle down. So we just need a file, rubber black, some dirty black paint, a brush obviously, and a vehicle to work with. So let's get cracking. Okay, so the first step is we're going to put some of this wash, or paint some of this wash, right over the whole of the vehicle, apart from the windscreens. And what this does, I know it looks awful at the minute, is it gets in all the nooks and crannies, which is what we want. And then immediately, I'm going to take some, I've got some blue roll here, but you can use a tissue, whatever. And we're going to wipe it, most of it that is, straight back off. And immediately it takes on a much more realistic tone. And I say tone because out the box, as we all know, you've got that really unrealistic shine, which you don't get unless the vehicle's brand new, which this obviously isn't. And basically, yeah, what we're ending up with is a van that's got muck in all the bits where muck normally goes, which is the edges or whatever. You can see. Let's give it another one as well. Again, don't worry because it might look awful to start with, but once we take that tissue, the only thing is you've got to be careful with all the bits and bats, you know, like wing mirrors and stuff, not to break them off. But already that looks loads better. Now we will do that, or you will do that, or sorry, what I should say is I will do that all over the vehicle. I'm not going to do it in front of the camera now because it'll take ages, but you get the idea. And you've got muck in all the nooks and crannies. Just keep wiping it until you're pleased with the overall effect. And again, it doesn't take much. It's only a minute, couple of minutes job. Right, that immediately, in my eyes, looks better. Let's get on to the next stage. So this was a trick I picked up from Alan Downs, that great mentor of mine. And it's simply just to file the bottoms of the tyres. And the reason for that is because all road vehicles, as they're sitting on the road with the weight above them, they compress the tyres. But if you don't do this, it just looks as though the tyres are, well, it just doesn't look realistic in my mind. This will give a bit of a flat spot, so when it's sitting on the road, it will look much more realistic. I'll come back to this in a second because I'm just going to do it off camera to get the right effect, otherwise we'll be here all day. Okay, so 5 minutes later, if you just look at the bottom of the tyres, you'll see that I've filed them off just at the bottom there. So, difficult for the camera to pick this up. So when it's actually sat on the road, it just sits way better. I'll try and show this to the camera without it falling off. Again, it's difficult for the camera to pick it up, but believe me, it really does sit a lot better on the road. And it only takes a good 5-6 minutes to do these vehicles in 00 or O gauge, just filing the bottom of the tyres. The only other thing we need to do is we're just going to add a bit of rubber black paint to the tyres as well. So let's do that next. So all we're going to do is just put some rubber black paint over the tyres themselves. Again, this is acrylic, but what this does when it dries, I've spilt a bit, as you can see, onto the metal, but once this dries, in a few minutes it will give the tyres a much more realistic look. I'll come back to this in a sec when it dries. Okay, so that's the end of our little project on improving a road vehicle. Doesn't matter what you do it to, car, van, bus, whatever, truck, the effect is the same. And just to clarify again, we've got rubber black paint on the tyres. We've filed the bottom of the tyres so it sits better. And we've just given it a wash over with some dirty black, just some black paint that's diluted. And then just rubbed it off with a paper towel. And it does look way better. So even if you take a couple of tips from that, hopefully they'll work for you. Thanks for watching. Okay, that's it for another week. Thanks ever so much, and I hope some of those tips and hints gave you some inspiration anyway. But all it remains for me to say is, again, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe as ever. Also, any comments are always answered, are always appreciated if there's anything you want me to cover in future videos. But otherwise, I will see you in a week's time. Thanks again for watching.